they are fanatics. They have a fanatic view. That's why they can kill kids and do horrible stuff, is that they are true believers. This isn't old. The same thing happened in AD 70 and 150 AD. These are the same heirs of that. Yeah. 2,000 years later. They've already tried to build the third temple. The guy's name was Julian the Apostate, and it was in 331. Yep. And he couldn't do it. He was like stymied. There were earthquakes. There was all this stuff. Like, where is the biblical or prophetic word to build the third temple? Like, where is it? Like, I don't think it's extant. It's just these rabbinical Jews want to do it.
Hey friends, thanks so much for being here. It's so great to have you back. That was author William Ramsey. He's written books like Abomination, Children of the Beast, and The Smiley Face Killers, and I wish he had Kash Patel's job. In this one we talk about the plot against humanity, the plan for the third temple, and by the way, what is a Tesseract? What is the spiritual war being waged against us regarding the cover-up of Erica Kirk and all she's involved in? Well, it may go all the way to Jeffrey Epstein. Trump, Epstein, Erica Kirk, and so much more all tied together in this one. Thanks so much for tuning in. Before we start, just a quick word about a new and valued sponsor. If you think getting a new iPhone is too expensive, I agree with you. Check this out. Have you ever noticed that your phone is spying on you? Maybe you're talking about Chevy trucks with your wife. Then you get an ad for Chevy trucks. It's not a coincidence. Your phone is listening to everything you say. Then it's selling your personal data and behaviors to the government, data brokers, and cyber criminals who'd love nothing more than to steal your identity. This is the Ghost phone. It looks like a regular smartphone, but it's completely stripped of all tracking and surveillance. It's the exact opposite of the phone you're probably watching this video on. And here's what your current phone is doing right now. It's tracking everywhere you go. Your favorite restaurant, your place of worship, every single search. Logged, packaged, and sold hundreds of times a day to people you've never met. That's why you should make the switch to the Ghost phone. The most secure mobile operating system on the planet. It's built on Pixel 7a, completely de-Googled, completely stripped of surveillance. This is no sketchy burner phone. It's the same hardened device used by undercover government agents, attorneys, and federal law enforcement, and now everyday Americans can own one. And everything still works. Apps, camera, calls, texts, same premium hardware. The only difference? Nobody is selling your movements to data brokers anymore. Go to ghostphone.co/SGT and use code SGT at checkout for $50 off. You deserve privacy. Stop letting big tech treat you like a product. The link is below. Get the Ghost phone. Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you so very much for being here. Sean from SGT Report. Now guys, in this one, I promise you an excellent interview with somebody who's going to blow you away. And let me just say that everything in the Epstein emails, everything surrounding this man is dark to the core, and it's all being covered up by the FBI, which brings me to the point I've been making. The assassination of Charlie Kirk and the cover-up as Erica Kirk became CEO but never questioned a grieving widow, folks, and the Epstein emails cover-up by our own FBI. In fact, over 200 victims in civil litigation with $61 million paid out so far. And Kash Patel has the audacity to tell the American people Epstein never trafficked anyone to anybody. There are no clients on the list. And of course, the third thing, the new war in Iran for Israel. Why? Is it all related to this cover-up of the Epstein emails? In this one, we're going to talk about the Ninth Circle, sex magic, Aleister Crowley, and so much more because it's all related. My guest, returning guest, author William Ramsey. William Ramsey investigates. William was last on in September and October of 2022, and he's long overdue to be back on this show. Author of Children of the Beast, Abomination, Global Death Cult, and The Smiley Face Killers. William Ramsey is back. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Great to be back with you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's a real pleasure to have you on, and I want to start with some current news, as I always do, a warning to the public, a warning to great Americans everywhere. They plan to bring us to our knees one way or the other. But before we begin, William, I just want you to briefly address what I just said there at the open. I think all three of these things are interrelated. The Charlie Kirk assassination and the cover-up, the Epstein emails and the cover-up, and now this new war with Iran. I think they're very much intertwined. You know why? Because they all connect. They all have one name connected. Donald J. Trump.
I totally agree with you. They're all connected, and there's a network that's involved and overlaps. I mean, I sent you that picture that involved Kushner with some of these other characters, and he's the one who's very much involved in negotiating the war and I think running an influence op on Trump. I think he was doing that, and that's Witkoff there with him, and he's holding hands with Leon Black, and there's Bondi smiling along with her little crucifix around her neck. So it's really an incredible event, and they are all tied together. I think Charlie Kirk was in the way for the war, the Iran war, and that's one of the reasons why he had to go. And the files are really incredible. There's just so much information, and on what they dropped, stuff was seeping through, even through the redactions. The redactions are part of the cover-up. What a lot of people don't understand or may not know is that once Trump came into office in early 2025, the redaction started right away, and we have evidence of it within FBI files, within the Epstein files themselves. They were asking questions, what should be redacted, and the directive was redact celebrities, ex-presidents, and other important people. So that's the cover-up. They're not redacting or keeping the victim safe. They're redacting people who are in those files. And it was a massive operation. The operation took place in Northern Virginia with 1,000 people being paid overtime to redact. So, and millions of dollars was spent, but it was all kind of kept secret. You can actually find articles about it online about this whole thing. If you remember, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General who sits over the FBI, was telling people the files were on her desk. She was slow rolling. They weren't being dropped. There was that fake Transparency Binder Act in March of 2025 with a lot of influencers that came out with stuff that already had been released. Like when they brought it out, I knew immediately that it was a bunch of baloney because that stuff was already released and redacted. So they brought out already existing files to try to fool the public, and they wrote the most transparent administration ever on the bottom there. Yeah. But so all of that stuff was pre-redacted even before the Epstein Files Transparency Act passed, I believe is either October or November of 2025. So then they had to, by following the law, they had to kind of reveal what they had. And I think that's what ended up having these 3.5 million files dropped in a very haphazard way, and also in a way that prohibits transparency. So the so-called most transparent administration dropped these files in a kind of almost amateurish way that looks like somebody who worked at Radio Shack did it. Right. Like they literally had a search bar where you only get 10 results at a time. It looks like something from almost like something that pre-existed the internet. Like it's incredible, especially with the complexity and the sophistication of data mining and data analysis today that we have now. You can do charts and everything. So they clearly slow rolled it and clearly made it as opaque as possible. And in a weird way, some of these files, like there were data sets that came out. There's 12 data sets. And then they packed millions of files in data set 9 and 10. Like it's really hard to go through. But there's been intrepid, really superb people doing stuff, downloading everything, putting it back up online. So you're able to kind of get a clearer picture, not a fully clear picture. And what's in there is just a real crime after crime after crime, a full-on RICO case, racketeer influence corrupt organization involving drugs, trafficking, financial skullduggery, possible murder, weird code words that validate the Pizzagate investigation or the Podesta emails. 1,000%. So the Epstein files validate the Podesta emails. So there's really a lot there. And one of the important things is Blanche, who is the undersecretary, who formerly was Trump's lawyer. Like he literally was in as Trump's personal lawyer, who became the deputy attorney general, flat out said 2.5 million files. So they have terabytes of files, 6 million files total. 2.5 million of those files were not released because they depicted death, torture, and CSAM. Death, torture, and child porn, or child what do they call it? Child abuse material. Forgot. There's like a new acronym, CSAM. So we don't have all the files, but what's in there is really telling, and it validates a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and let me just add that the FBI, just to drill it home, folks, the FBI was given direct orders from day one to begin redactions. From day one. This was never about transparency. It was always about a cover-up. And I reached out to William. I wanted to get him on the show to talk about this picture specifically because he says, screenshot this one and save it. This one picture is of great historical importance. And I just want to drill down a little deeper and find out exactly what that means. But I want to share this first from Candace. This from Xavier Possad, the author who is all but proven that Brigitte Macron is a man, was born a man. Brigitte Macron will speak tomorrow from the White House on children's well-being. Have Benjamin Netanyahu and Jeffrey Epstein also been invited? To which Candace responded, "This is an unbelievably sick world. The Trumps have made their allegiances increasingly clear. Beyond anything else, they are platforming a man who statutorily raped a child, Emmanuel Macron, and is currently attempting to bankrupt an American citizen for telling the world the truth about it. That's because Brigitte Macron and Emmanuel have filed a lawsuit against Candace Owens." Believe it or not, guys, this is very much a related part of this story, what you're seeing on my screen right there, because Donald J. Trump is named in these emails, and some of the allegations against him are horrific. Before we go any further there, though, I want to play this warning from Shannon Joy, essentially, guys, regarding UN Agenda 2030. They are going to jam it down our throats one way or another. Listen to this.
I mentioned that the IEA chief basically said the shit is hitting the fan, everything's falling apart, and he just published Lockdowns 2.0, an energy lockdown playbook. They released a 10-point plan over the weekend telling governments to restrict driving, ground flights, force remote work, and ban gas cooking. They called it sheltering from oil shocks, writes Aaron Day. Here is the plan. Number one, they are recommending alternating driving days based on your license plate number, odd plates on Monday, even plates on Tuesday, and countries are now already implementing this. They are recommending mandatory speed limit reductions on every highway, not for safety, but fuel rationing by another name. You can still drive, just slower and less often.
All right, guys, I'll pause it there. Ladies and gentlemen, they are going to shove UN Agenda 2030 down our throats if we comply, but this is all color of law bullshit. Do not comply. Do not comply. I'm coming back to William Ramsey for your thoughts on that before we dive into the deep end of these emails in the Epstein case, because you know as well as I do, this is all interrelated. The Iran war, now that's an excuse to lock us down in 15-minute cities and roll out UN Agenda 2030 bullshit. William Ramsey, it's all interrelated, and I feel like perhaps we've been sold out. What say you?
I think it's all related. I think you're right. I think this is the agenda is ongoing. So I think you see these agendas that are like a continuum. The agenda to kind of destabilize Russia, Iran, the ongoing war. Like I think the Iranians know that, like, even if they do a ceasefire, that agenda will still be there, much like these kind of New World Order agendas that involve the UN. So you see the same thing, just another excuse. Instead of this pandemic, it'll be oil shocks. So trying to, and it's really the psychological operation aspect of it is very important, which is to atomize and kind of minimize people's contact with each other so that they can be more suggestible to these new rules. So I think that's kind of it'll be the same thing that happened during COVID back in, I think, 2020. So
yeah, and
you see that same agenda. Yeah.
1,000%. And if there's anything we've learned from those COVID lockdowns, it's do not comply. It's color of law. If they say you can only drive on a Tuesday because of your license plate number, drive on a Wednesday. Defy them. And when they pull you over, tell them to show you the law. show you the law in black and white, because color of law is not law, and we, the people, will not comply. That's the best advice I can give. And friends, we got our backs up against the wall, because in this conversation, we are going to talk about Erica Kirk, the widow that shall not be questioned because she's in mourning, the CEO of TPUSA. Do you guys know what Tesseract is? Do you know what a Tesseract is? Well, if you've been following Candace's work, you do. And guess what the name of the school, the high school, I believe, guess what the name of the high school was that Erica Kirk attended? Tesseract. Let me play this clip, and then we'll talk about the significance of it with William Ramsey.
What do you guys think? Do you think Erica was born into something? I have that general sense. I will say that. Do you think something happened to her in her childhood? Tesseract, well, I'm going to give you tomorrow Tesseract's direct ties to Fort Huachuca. Man, it's just, I just had them everywhere right at the very beginning. I would very much bet that Erica knows what Fort Huachuca is. That just feels right to me. Anyway, that will be tomorrow.
Well, it feels right to her because it's been proven to be true. And it's very clear now at this point, since Erica Kirk cannot provide a bulletproof timeline about her whereabouts on September 8th, 9th, and 10th, that she is an asset. And it appears to just about everybody paying attention, guys, that Charlie Kirk was basically Truman from The Truman Show. She's running scared, and I'll tell you what's interesting about all this, William. All of the people that support Erica and tell the rest of us to shut up and don't question the grieving widow, I call them knee benders. You got Gunther Eagleman, you got Insurrection Barbie, you got Cat Turd, you got all these big accounts saying Candace is a demon, Tucker Carlson is a demon, don't question Erica Kirk. And I wanted to start there today because all three of those subjects are interconnected. So I wanted to kind of start with Erica Kirk and get your thoughts. Maybe you should explain to people what a Tesseract is.
Tesseract was really kind of a deep occult concept, and it's a hypercube, or a cube within a cube. And it actually kind of has like a scientific background, but in the occult, it's basically keeping somebody in a box so you control them. And it is, when I saw that Candace had said Erica Kirk went to a school called Tesseract, I was like, I just was in shock. It was incredible because I had done shows on this and I posted something about the Tesseract, and it's in the common culture. You'll see it in Rosemary's Baby and Eyes Wide Shut, two very important films, I think in connection to the Epstein files. But what's interesting about this Tesseract is it's also used in Little St. James. So this box within a box concept is in certain of these rooms at Little St. James. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, Epstein or somebody around Epstein knows these sophisticated occult concepts, really. So this Tesseract you'll see around, and actually Trump uses it as well. So it used to be, according to other cult researchers, it was really something that you had to be initiated to understand. Like it was that kind of important. So that's the cube within the cube. But you can see that, like I was showing you some of the pictures in the pre-show of this Tesseract at Little St. James. And it's incredible. It's really is. It's just like, let me see if I can bring this up.
Yeah, let me end my screen share because I want you to show some of your images. And the point I want to make is that what's become very evident, given the investigation into Erica Kirk's mysterious background and all of her lies, she's been caught in lie after lie after lie, including that she didn't date for like 5 years in New York City because she saw how bad it was through her roommate. All a lie. She was chasing athletes. She was involved with athletes. She was engaged at least once. And there's the hallmark of a Tesseract at, is that Little St. James, William?
Yeah, that's in the bathroom at Little St. James. So this is directly from some of these. This is from the files.
Yeah.
Let me show another one too.
Yeah, show another one. And I just want to share with the audience. Yeah, look at the rug, guys. I just want to share with the audience what William just said is really interesting. So Erica went to a Tesseract school. We all believe that she is an asset, an intelligence asset for somebody. Might be the state of Israel, could be the Trump organization, or both, could be the CIA. She's an asset who appears to be Charlie's handler, allegedly. And it's interesting what you just said, William, about a Tesseract. The idea is control, to control a subject. And she went to a Tesseract school. Do you think MK Ultra could even play into something like this?
100%. I think these guys knew about mind control. I think Epstein did. And maybe Erica Kirk was targeted from a very early age as like one of these kind of like gifted children. There were gifted children programs associated with the early behavior modification programs in the United States. This one picture is really something else because it shows Melania with the cube within a cube clothes, and there's Elon Musk in the background at Mar-a-Lago. So it's there, it's around. You'll watch it, and she knows like the Star of Ishtar too, which is in Eyes Wide Shut. She actually sells a pendant of the Star of Ishtar on her website today. You can go buy it.
Huh.
So these guys, the Eyes Wide Shut kind of parallels really are there. But yeah, I think that Erica Kirk, there's something about her, this whole thing, just her connection to this fort that Candace found out about is like incredible. It's just a huge connection to the military industrial complex. There's no question about it.
1,000%. And you know what, man? That's what I've been saying. What I found really horrifying about Candace's investigation, Fort Huachuca, etc., the Egyptian military planes, the boots on the ground, the French legionnaires, along with others, potentially U.S. military folks, her investigation is truly groundbreaking. And what do we continue to see over on X from the knee benders? Shut Candace up because she's interfering with the prosecution of lone gunman Tyler Robinson. I guess we've just jumped the shark, William. And before we go any further, I just want to ask you, what is the historical significance of this photo in your own words? I just want to hear it from you specifically.
That photo that I posted that has Trump, this is from September 7th, 2025, right? He is shaking hands with Black, who's very close to Epstein for years.
Leon Black?
Yeah, Leon Black. That's
Okay.
Leon Black.
Okay, and who's to the right of Trump?
That's
Looks like
Witkoff.
Waltz. That's Witkoff.
No, that's Witkoff. So he's the one involved with the whole Iran disaster, getting us started with Iran and then dedicating more and more. Like, oh, it's just going to be an excursion for 2 days. And now Heg Sith is asking for $200 billion, which would change the whole country if it was spent on people here. So they're going to waste all this money in the Middle East again, which, you know, is going to, I mean, we're going to go bankrupt. I think that's really what's going to happen because of the war once the gas prices go up too. But that's it. And then there's Bondi smiling along. Now, I'm assuming she reads the documents that have come to her. And if she had read the documents like I read the documents from the Epstein files, she knows what the accusations are against Black right there. The accusations against Black are so repulsive, I cannot repeat them. There's a civil case. There were payouts of tens of millions of dollars from Black alone to, I think, the Virgin Islands. And so there's Trump glad handling with Black. Read the files. Just go to justice.gov/Epstein and type in Leon Black and look for the files. Look for the civil litigation files. It shocks the conscience. Like, wow. And when you said at the intro, this 200 victim, there was a letter. If you know the history of the Epstein situation and all the litigation that took place between Giuffre and Maxwell, Castle is involved in this. He's kind of a super lawyer. He's also a victim rights kind of. His interest is victim rights, but he worked for the Supreme Court. But he was involved from the very beginning. He sent a letter to Pam Bondi in 2025 saying, "I really need you to look at this. There's 200 victims. I've worked on many, many cases. Now, most of these cases they're under NDA, so they never make it to the public, right? They're usually either pre-trial adjudicated. That's what's different about Giuffre, is that she took a lot of these people to court, civil court. She wanted to go to civil court, to her credit.
Yeah, and they murdered her, by the way. Let's just add that I think they whacked her. They tried to hit her with a truck and kill her. And then she ended up dead in her home after being on the Alex Jones show several times saying she would never, ever kill herself. And the charge is what? She killed herself?
Under really murky circumstances. They never say how she did it or a lot of that stuff. Apparently it's a gun, which is also a big tell. Like, that's very unusual for a woman if she did do that with a gun. Her dad said she would never do it. She made open statements. I'm not going to. It's much like the woman who was the madam in D.C. said, "I'll never kill myself," and then she goes to the garage.
Oh, that's right.
She's found hanging from her up. I mean, a lot of these people end up like that Spence ended up in a hotel room, who was also kind of involved in
Yeah.
blackmail.
Yeah, you know what? My wife and I talk about this a lot because I've woken her up over time and I've said, look, these things don't happen this way. These people, that's what works. What you're seeing when Anthony Bourdain is hung with a red scarf from a doorknob or a door in a hotel room, he was whacked. The same is true with Kate Spade. She passed in exactly the same way, red scarf, doorknob, or door. I think they're whacked. You know who I might have it right is what's his name? The actor, the Hollywood actor.
Quinn, is it Quinn or what's
No,
his
the one who
name?
talks about star whackers.
Yeah. Oh, I
It's
forgot. I know who you're talking about.
he was in Family Vacation. He was in the Vacation movies. He's got a famous brother. What the hell's his name? Star whackers.
Randy Quaid.
Randy Quaid. Thank you. Randy Quaid says much the same thing. He calls them star whackers. Well, yeah, I guess in that case, Kate Spade was a star, fashion designer, Kate Spade purses. And then Anthony Bourdain. And by the way, his girlfriend, boy, we're going down a road here that we don't need to go down, but very weird stuff going on with probably sex magic. It seems all interrelated. And you sent me a screenshot, I didn't know this, from the Epstein emails, Tantric Sex. In 2007, Epstein purchased Christopher Hyatt's book, Secrets of Western Tantra, The Sexuality of the Middle Path. The book was dedicated to his teacher and friend, Israel Regardie, a Kabbalist and apprentice of Aleister Crowley. So I think we're onto something here, William.
I think so. Hyatt was a bigwig in the occult. Like, he was friends with Regardie. Regardie was like literally trained under Crowley. He actually sent something to Crowley saying, I want to work under you. And he went, and they had kind of had I covered in my book, Children of the Beast, but the fact that Hyatt showed up to Epstein, and that's sex magic stuff. Like, I mean, that's just evidence of that book. We know from the earlier investigations in 2007 that Epstein also collected stuff on how to have slaves, like your perfect slaves, BDSM type of like training manuals and stuff like that. But the interest in Tantra and the discussions he had, so it wasn't just the ordering of the book, but he was talking to people about that as well. So he knew some pretty dark stuff, that and other things I don't really want to mention. But
Yeah. Well, let me just play the clip because we'll have Julian Dorsey do it for us. But I just wanted to share this. You know, when we talk about Eyes Wide Shut and we see those old masks from the Rothschild ball in the 70s, all suggesting this duality, this mirrored existence, MK Ultra to some extent. Believe it or not, guys, this photo is from Mar-a-Lago. I guess they're just going to party while the world melts down. To me, it is a callback. It is a hallmark of those secret sex parties that are at least partially depicted in Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick's great film starring Tom Cruise. Here's Julian Dorsey, though, on Leon Black, who financed Jeff Epstein's operation.
The Leon Black thing's very dark.
Yep.
Because he financed Jeffrey Epstein in the last 5 to 7 years of his life to the tune of $257 million.
Yep.
He was the founder of Apollo Global, but Josh Harris was a co-founder of Apollo, and he was the guy who was going to take over Apollo, it was always known. And then he was pushed out because he wanted Black out of the company because he said this is bullshit.
that's
Did that do
Black
any-
right there. His nickname in the files is Shrek. He has a vague resemblance to Shrek, but there he is with Gates. And that's the file I'm talking right there on the left. I don't think you want to read that out loud, but the second page on that. But you see the way that they ordered this is the acronym is EFTA, so it's Epstein, what is it? Epstein Files Transparency Act, and then the Bates number is there, so you can check it out from the Bates number. That's a piece of civil litigation. You can see the lawyer there, the partner at the law firm, and what they're talking about. One of the interesting things is these partners at the law firms, they're civil litigants. They're like bring people in civil, but they're like, why hasn't this been investigated? I can't believe that nobody's ever brought criminal charges against these people. Like, they're in shock. The lawyers are in shock, and they should be. And they actually, a lot of these lawyers felt compelled to refer information in their civil cases to the Southern District in New York, and nothing happened. So there's like the cover up was huge, and a lot of the stuff is one of the people who were arrested. If you remember, his name was Joffrey Berman, and he was involved in the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein in July of 2019. And then he started writing up like a memo. He had these very lengthy memos. One was 85 pages, and another's 40 pages. One was about other people involved in the conspiracy, co-conspirators is mentioned, and then other corporations. And those were heavily redacted in the Epstein files. And then Berman was fired.
Well, I've enhanced
So
this document so we can read it, and we'll read
the
some
second,
of this.
yeah.
No, I
Well,
know it's sickening, but look, my audience is well aware that amongst the youngest victims in the Epstein emails is a baby still attached to an umbilical cord. So these people are from the pits of hell. So a 7 to 8 year old endured sexual violence from Leon Black. Parts of her vagina had been bitten, etc. What else do we have here?
what's also important about this is that it's a recent file. It's from 2023, right? So this isn't something like something from 2007.
Yeah.
This is it. Like I mean, it get bleeding, wouldn't take her to the doctor. Like, what the heck is going on?
Right. And here's one too. A 16-year-old was raped by Black. And I guess as I'm returning to you, one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation is because of the knee benders who tell us to trust the plan, everything's going just fine, and anybody that questions Donald J. Trump is a traitor. I want to ask you, is there any evidence or evidence that you found in the Epstein emails that connects Trump to traffickers and or to
Yes.
doing anything violent with children?
Yes, to both. I mean, I wouldn't say the evidence may not be the right word, but there's facts and things that are allegations in the files of that. And one is a very important picture with this guy who's his name was Gypsy Gita. Let me see if I can pull this up. But he was mentioned. I mentioned that co-conspirator file from Berman, that 85 page. There's a guy whose nickname was Gypsy Gita. His real name was like Alvarez, but he kind of had this kind of new age kind of thing, and here he is with Trump. And that's in the files. Let me see if I can find it. EFTA is 012492000. This is old. This is probably 20 years old. But there's also allegations like when Epstein got arrested, a lot of people felt comfortable and were able to go into to give information to the FBI. So it's called an NTOSC file. I think it's called the 302 file too. Like there's a bunch of different names for them, but there's just a whole flurry of these that came into the FBI talking about stuff. And you can see them in there. They're in 2020, 2021. And there's just allegations of all this stuff about Trump and Epstein and things that happened in the past, their intake things. And it's just like, it's actually really hard to, I think I just scratched the surface, but there's at least 50 or 100 pages about it. And there's a lot about Trump. So a lot of the stuff he's saying is lying. Some of the interesting documents or emails that are in there that talk about Trump is actually one email between Epstein and Larry Summers. If you remember who Larry Summers was, he was Secretary of the Treasury. A lot of these people
ended up at Harvard, didn't he?
Right, yeah. There's an email from 2018 where Summers is asking Epstein, are you going to Mar-a-Lago for over the holidays? What that shows is that Epstein is still going to Mar-a-Lago in 2018, if that's the truth, So in the whole fabric, or, the story that the public is told is that the relationship between Trump and Epstein ended in 2005. There's also another one in 2016 where Epstein is talking to somebody else, hang out with the Trump boys, had a whole bunch of fun in 2016. So I think all these guys are lying. I think everybody involved in the network is lying. They're lying about their relationship. They're lying, like that picture that I showed you earlier. There's another picture of Kushner with a bunch of these guys that I think I sent to you. But like it's really a network. They call it a class, but I think the networking is more important because they overlap. There's weird overlaps with weird things. Like there's a picture with Geffen, who was Cobain's producer. There's in front of like Kushner and Black, who's making a weird hand gesture. And then there's this girl named Jukova, who was Abramovich's wife. And one of the strange things about her is when she got married, one of her bridesmaids was, now I'm totally forgetting what his name was. It was Chris Cornell's wife. His future wife, Vicky, was like, so she's connected to the network. And then Cornell dies strangely, right?
Yeah, see, that reminds me very much of Erica Kirk. I mean, that's an absolute honeypot. There's just no two ways about it. And the reason she's not mourning normally, in my opinion, is because she wasn't in love with
Charlie.
That's right. I don't believe she was, and I believe he was an assignment, and I believe she's an operative, and I believe her goal was to take over. Well, I can't, and by the way, I don't know what lies in her heart. I can just evaluate her reaction after his death, and her reaction is very much different from what my wife's would be, I hope, from what Candace's reaction has been to the murder of her friend in broad daylight. And what's really interesting is Erica Kirk doesn't seem to want to know who actually done it. And in fact, everybody at TPUSA is angry at any of the leaks coming out that impugn or make the public suspicious of Erica Kirk and leadership at TPUSA. And so public enemy number one is Candace Owens for asking the right questions. And I guess it's because, you call it, what'd you just call it? You said an organization,
a network.
Kushner,
It's really a network.
It's a mafia. It's a mafia network.
For sure. Yeah.
It really seems to be. And by the way, I wanted to play this clip. My wife and I discussed this the other night. This is a slow-mo version of Trump patting a Secret Service agent on the butt, a female. And I just want y'all to watch her left arm. So imagine you're leaving the Oval Office and President Trump, a man you're sworn to protect, makes physical contact with you. That's a nice moment, a hand gesture, a pat on the shoulder. Watch her left arm. His hand moves down. There goes her arm, almost like she wanted to whack him, to stop it. And he pats her on the ass. Folks, if President Trump is willing to behave that way in front of cameras in the Oval Office with a female Secret Service agent, what might he be capable of behind closed doors? William Ramsey, I'm just asking.
Well, a lot, because there's rumors between Bannon, or conversation between Bannon and Epstein in 2019 about Trump having a relationship with this other girl who was like kind of like a door person there. And I mean, it's really something else. And that actually, when I posted that, it had 10 million views or something like that. Like, people didn't know. But the fact that they knew, or seemed to imply, that Trump was having an extra marital relationship with one of the people in the White House was really something else. I can't remember. I don't want to mention her name, but yeah, it's really something else. There's a lot going on with Trump that isn't divulged in the public, but it's actually mentioned in the files.
Do you think he's being blackmailed?
I think that he's being done like Charlie was done, like an influence operation and possible blackmail. I don't think Charlie was blackmailed, but I think they just wanted to influence Trump always. And his weakness is women. And it goes all the way back to him being like head of a modeling agency or something like that. But I think that he's not independent at all. And I think they're watching over him. I think probably Kushner's involved, Witkoff's involved. Lutnick's heavily involved with Epstein. There's a picture of Lutnick, who's the Treasury Secretary, on Epstein Island with Epstein.
Well, he lived right next door. He lived right next door for more than a decade and claims they weren't friends. Literally, they shared a wall. That Epstein mansion in Manhattan, his neighbor was Lutnick. The same Lutnick who survived 9/11 because he wasn't at Cantor when the towers came down. Listen to this, ex-Mossad agent.
I believe that the American government is sort of trapped by the Israelis. Jeffrey Epstein is one of their tools to trap them.
And what do you think of Dershowitz's denial?
Hold on a second. I want to give you an example. Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, Ehud Barak, met Arafat in the 90s, and there was no deal. The reason was Epstein. They were being blackmailed by Epstein. Ehud Barak was also a friend of Epstein. The Prime Minister of Israel at the time, But he was being blackmailed by the Israeli right wing as well. And they stopped an agreement with Arafat. They were about to reach an agreement there for a two-state solution.
Yeah, we'll never, ever have peace. There will be no peace in the Middle East as long as Israel can blackmail our leaders. And I would say at the top of the list, along with all of the names that might come to mind, is Lindsey Graham. I mean, what do they have on that guy? Have you ever seen a bigger warmongering piece of filth in your life than Lindsey Graham?
No, they have a lot on him, I'm sure. He's not straight. Actually, one of the interesting things that you might find interesting that pertains to kind of not being straight and your interest in Candace's research into Macron is this exchange between Bannon and Epstein that took place in 2018, July, where Epstein writes, along with some other tidbits, I was shown a photo of Macron's boyfriend, right? So the rumor of him being into dudes is kind of validated by this.
Yeah.
And then Bannon says, is that true? The soldier. So I don't know what that reference is. Sometimes the audiences know more than me, but some of these nicknames might ring true. And then Epstein writes back, it gives new meaning to no worry, I have your back, right? Or remember the French stand behind you, yek. So they knew stuff. I mean, Epstein was gossipy and really shared a lot of gossip and stuff like that. And the Bannon exchanges themselves are really incredible because it shows Bannon and he presents himself as a Christian, is my understanding, with a lot of.
That's right. That's right. And actually, Steve Bannon, I didn't realize this about Steve Bannon. You want to talk about a spook of the highest order. Later in this interview, the guest talks about Bannon being a ghost. I mean, this is a man that can just appear and reappear in some of the most important places in the world. And he has access to some of the most important people in the world. But in this clip, they talk about, what does Bannon really know? What does Bannon know about Trump? And they also talk about the war that has been sparked between Roger Stone and Steve Bannon. Here's Julian Dorsey on Steve Bannon.
I think Steve Bannon, and this is a pure guess, pure spec.
Yeah, pure spec.
I think that Steve Bannon knows at least some of or most of the deranged contents of the 2.5 to 3 million Epstein files that have not been released to the public. And I would imagine he's probably even more implicated in those. And I would imagine that there are other people who are equally implicated that are all discussing things behind the scenes with him as a group. This is just me guessing. And he's staying radio silent in the hopes that that never sees the light of day. That would be my guess.
That makes sense.
But, you know, unless he's continuing to do some amazing work on all his ties and everything like that, Henry Abbott and I were able to discuss it when we sat down, because Henry Abbott is the guy who really blew the lid off this and got no credit for it in 2020. He went down the Steve Bannon rabbit hole and was like, holy shit, everywhere he's connected. But Alessi just put out another great documentary where he talks about, Alessi Alaman, I'm referring to, is on our team and has his own channel called Alessi Alaman, put out another great documentary discussing a thing that is finally coming to light that I had talked about with him behind the scenes for a lot of years. And now the public's kind of picked it up because of some things in the Epstein files. But Bannon's relationship with Brock
Pierce, Tether, Bitcoin. You know, he's all over everything, Steve Bannon, and I had no idea he had that kind of power. You know who he reminds me of? But the flip side, like I always thought these two guys were good versus evil. Mark Levin has tremendous power. I had no idea. Mark Levin is way more than just a host of a show on Fox News. He's got the ear of the president. He put his arm around the president and called Trump our first Jewish president. I sort of see Mark Levin and Steve Bannon now in the same light. They're both extremely powerful, and Bannon's all over these Epstein emails. He was on a first-name relationship with Jeff Epstein.
Very close. I would say intimate, all the way up until Epstein's arrest.
Sorry for the quick break. Have you guys stumbled upon this Chuck Norris video yet? The dude's in his 80s, and he says he still feels like he's in his 50s. He had some pretty cool tips in there, too, about what he's doing, including these 3 foods that he avoids like the plague. And he explains all the things he's doing, and it was super simple. And by the way, his wife is doing these same things too, and she says it's changed her life. So I wanted to share the info with you. It's absolutely free, since what's happened to Chuck and me could also happen to you too. But of course, with any new method, your results can vary. But the video is definitely worth checking out, and I've got a special link just for you. You can watch the entire video right now at chuckdefense.com/SGT. That's chuckdefense.com/SGT. I've linked it below this video, and you're going to want to check it out right now. chuckdefense.com/SGT. The link is below. He was on a first-name relationship with Jeff Epstein.
Very close. I would say intimate, all the way up until Epstein's arrest. And he almost went to the island. I can't confirm it, but these are verified. This is not my speculation. There were arrangements for Bannon to go to Little St. James in May of 2019. And then if you remember, Epstein's arrested at Teterboro in July of 2019. So 2 months before. But the lead up to that, there's very extensive exchanges. And all these things happening, between Bannon, who I think was elbowed out of the White House by none less than Kushner. If you remember, there was kind of like an internal power struggle, it seems like.
Yeah.
But he was involved in trying to rehab Epstein's reputation. And if you remember, like 2018, late 2018 is, I think, like a very important marker, which is when Julie K. Brown released the 3-part series on Epstein at the Miami Herald, which I think she won the Pulitzer for. But it really kind of put Epstein back on the map. People kind of were talking about him underground. But that's really the beginning of the end for him, because then the grand jury was assembled and then the evidence was starting to be collected. Then he got arrested. And I do believe they tried to kill him July, according to the evidence in the Epstein files, which I've read over and over. They tried to kill him with this guy Tartaglione on July 23rd of 2019, and then successfully killed him on August 10th.
Do you believe that? Do you actually believe he's dead?
Yes. Yeah,
you do.
I do, for a variety of reasons. There are tons of pictures of him. There are multiple autopsies. There's pictures of supposedly of him. If it's a cover-up, it's really one of the greatest cover-ups of all time.
But I think a cover-up in the sense that, of course, all the cameras failed, and the data and the bribes and the bribes and the guards falling asleep. And I just think, when we take a look at those emails, and he says, "As you probably know, I represent the Rothschild family," end quote. I mean, the power here is massive enough to jailbreak him. And so I just keep that open as a possibility that he might be alive and well, because there is no justice in this country.
They didn't let Robert Maxwell live. So Robert Maxwell kind of tried to pull cards.
Yeah.
He was in trouble for stealing money from the UK pension funds for one of these newspapers, and he was found in the water. I mean, I think it's verified he's dead in the Canary Islands. He's actually referenced by Epstein. He said he was ended. Epstein says he was ended. So he seemed to know that he was enough. He was done. And I think Epstein was trying to pull in his chits too. Like, he was trying to survive. He thought that he was going to get out much like 2007 is my guess. He had lawyers. Reed Weingarten is coming to he's talking to him all the time. He keeps saying, "I'm not suicidal. I'm not suicidal. I'm not suicidal." And there's voluminous records of this investigation of what happened to Epstein once he got into the MCC and when he left on a gurney. He was kept saying, "I'm not suicidal." They said there was, when he came back from court one day before he died, the MCC handed him, according to their own records, they handed him a paper and said, "Sign this. It says you're suicidal." He says, "I'm not signing it because I'm not suicidal." So they tried to get evidence that he was suicidal. And that's what they told. If you remember, what was told to the public is that the first thing that happened in 723 was he was tried to commit suicide. Remember? Mm-hmm. That was what was preferred to the public. That's a lie. That's not what's in the files. That's not what's in the FBI investigation or the jail investigation. So there's a distinct difference between what the public was told and what was going on in that jail. And they knew after, in the courtroom, this is in the Epstein files, I can get it for you. They knew after, they're like, wow, maybe putting Tartaglione in there, who was in court, in jail.
For killing. He's a cop killer already, wasn't he?
Well, he was convicted like in the last couple of years. He wasn't convicted at the time, but he was like in jail for killing 4 people in a bar. He was a
Yeah.
dirty cop, a drug dealing cop.
Yeah, and this guy was jacked. I mean, this guy, if there's anybody you don't want to be in a cell with, it's a guy who is facing 4 murder charges, has no way out, right? He's got no options, and he's jacked. I mean, this guy was jacked on steroids. Wouldn't necessarily make the greatest cellmate.
Right.
In my
No,
view.
but I mean, it's so corrupt. Like they knew it. Like
Yeah.
he shouldn't be in there with Epstein. And he kept calling Epstein a pedophile. He kept calling him a jury. Like he was saying something. He was really aggressive. And I think that the 723 event was a mistake. They thought Epstein was dead. Epstein didn't remember anything that happened, but he told them, "I think my roommate is trying to kill me."
Yeah.
So I think that they were going to get rid of Epstein too. I think that he was put in jail to get him as a way to dead men tell no tales.
Yeah, well, and it certainly could be, but I just want to again share with the audience. I mean, the level of power retained by these people who are above the law, they really are. I mean, the clients are all above the law. Okay, none of the clients are facing any prison time at this point. Now, some of them have had to resign, like the CEO of that shipping company, BP World. He had to resign after the emails came out of him and Jeff Epstein celebrating the torture video. What torture video was that? Nobody knows for sure, but here's an email from Jeff Epstein saying, "I give you permission to kill him. He's apparently with," redacted, "he lied to you and he lied to me." So, William Ramsey, when you said at the beginning of this broadcast that these emails actually support the claims we all made during Pizzagate, support the claims that Isaac Cappy has made against Hollywood celebrities and powerful people, you say these emails help support Pizzagate, Pedagate, which I covered in depth 10 years ago. I tend to agree with you. Do you want to vet that out?
100%. There's overlapping things from Pizzagate in this. The same code words, additional code words, same people. Abramovich pops up in these files. They actually, through the Edge Foundation and this guy John Brockman, who I think was, in my opinion, another influence agent, was trying to set up a meeting between Abramovich, which he did before Pizzagate in 2014 or 2015, with almost every tech luminary in Silicon Valley. Like there's nobody who wasn't in that, who Brockman wasn't trying to set up with her. And they were calling her a great performance artist, right? So this is the big cover, but she's like a stone cold witch involved in blood rituals and spirit cooking. So that's another like occult tie. When you said this thing about kill people, but if you can bring up that, share that screen, I don't know if you've got it shared. If you look through this, they're like, I need somebody for this. I've got the right person, Delta Force. This to me is they're trying to get secret operators to do their work for them.
Which email? I'm not sure which email you're referring to.
Okay, let me go back. Okay, share. Can you share that?
Yeah.
Participant now see. So if you look at this file, you were talking about kill people. And here they are like trying to set up what I think are like secret operatives. Jeff says on plane, Harry Fish says, have a few great options. Special Forces, Secret Service, old retired cops. That's just one. They're just incredible. This guy, Fish, who was like his doctor, was one of these guys where they mentioned Goyim. They're talking about, it's a very derisive term for non-Jews. And grape soda, so this other thing which people have said is gang rape. But Fish was his kind of urologist. I think he was giving him erectile dysfunction pills. But like to validate Pizzagate, it's all there. There's all the stuff. They actually knew Pizzagate. It's actually incredible because there's an email between Epstein and Thiel the day after the Podesta emails were released. And Epstein is sending him something saying Thiel is mentioned in the Podesta files, the Podesta emails in 2016. And that was really a crucial element of that earlier presidential run, if you remember. And actually, one of the interesting things is when the evil one, Hillary Clinton, was deposed recently, she came out and bagged on Pizzagate because it was the issues in Pizzagate led to, I think, what Trump got in on the office. And then he said the exposure of Epstein files was what he got into this time around, right, in 2024, 2025. And then he covered it up. Like, these external events of these criminal events are really having an influence on the culture and the politics. There's no question. For the last decade.
No, 1,000%. And you know what's terrifying about the construct under which we live now, in the world in which we live, with AI stealing everybody's jobs? I'm not being hyperbolic, folks. The white-collar jobs are now going away in real time. Some of the most well-heeled companies on planet Earth continue to lay off thousands of workers at a time. Meanwhile, Peter Thiel is flying around the world having private conversations about the Antichrist. And William, I think the main reason I wanted to have this conversation is for a spiritual wake-up call for everybody listening. Folks, spread this far and wide. The time is now. These people believe in dark, dark powers. They commune with dark powers. I mean, that brings us right back to Aleister Crowley and sex magic. And these people are all into it, William. And meanwhile, now we're being told by the ADL that the term, literally, have you seen this? The phrase, I hate the Antichrist, is hate speech, according to the ADL. As the rabbis say, prepare for the Moshiach. The Jewish Antichrist is almost here.
Their Messiah, right?
Dude,
the ADL of B'nai B'rith, they always leave out the whole Masonic element of the ADL. The B'nai B'rith is Jewish masonry, so people need to take that with a ever-sized grain of salt.
Well,
if you share this one file, this is the Ninth Circle. They're mentioning this really dark occult group, Bannon and Epstein, in 2018, which is involved in all kinds of human sacrifice in Europe. It's incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible
well,
stuff.
and that's the whole point. And by the way, let's not bury the lead. They want, through this phony baloney war with Iran that has been engineered, by the way, the commanders we're hearing are telling some of the troops, be not afraid. Donald J. Trump is ordained for this war. He's going to usher in the apocalypse, or I guess they're saying Armageddon, and bring on the second coming of Christ. That's blasphemy on its face, William. No man knows the hour or day. In addition to that, they're openly talking about rebuilding the third temple. Well, they have to blow up the Dome on the Rock in order to do that. And what do they want with that third temple? They want to bring back their sacrifices to their gods. And I'm telling you, folks, don't let them hoodwink you. Those will be human sacrifices. That's what I think they want to do ultimately with that third temple. And they want everybody to bend the knee to their Messiah, the Antichrist. And if you confess to believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, off with your head. That's what I think they're engineering as we speak, William. Personally, that's what I believe.
I think you're right. I think they're trying to build.
Do you think I'm right, or am I being hyperbolic?
Yeah. No. I think that they are fanatics. They have a fanatic view. That's why they can kill kids and do horrible stuff, is that they are true believers in their view. This isn't old. The same thing happened in AD 70 and 150 AD. These are the same heirs of that. Yeah. 2,000 years later. They've already tried to build the third temple. The guy's name was Julian the Apostate, and it was in 331. Yep. And he couldn't do it. He was like stymied. There were earthquakes. There was all this stuff. Like, where is the biblical or prophetic word to build the third temple? Like, where is it? Like, I don't think it's extant. It's just these rabbinical Jews want to do it.
That's right.
They want to go back. And according to Christianity, the temple is Christ. And that's why all the veils were rent from top to bottom, right? At the temple. So God was revealing himself through Christ to humanity. It's already been done. And Christ, he was always railing against these kind of priestcrafts and these rabbinical type Jews, and the Pharisees are kind of the heirs of the Pharisees are some of these people today. These aren't the kind of they're the people the prophets and the apostles fought against. They're not on that side. So that's what people don't get. That's why you see a guy like Huckabee, it just blows your mind. Like, do you understand the Bible? Like, I think it's a different religion. You see something, there's one pastor, Locke, who's like, he's up on the stage with a bunch of like hexagrams that have nothing to do with David. They're more to do with like occultism.
Well, they're false prophets. And let me just share a couple of things, because the interview that Tucker did with Huckabee is seminal. It's extremely important. And he got Huckabee to admit that, yes, the biblical deed that these people claim to have to the land, going back to the book of Genesis, is phony baloney, because Netanyahu is not even born in that part of the world. He's from Poland. He was educated in the United States, and his real name is Milikowski. And meanwhile, the Jews say they have a biblical deed to the land. Well, what Jews? Not Netanyahu. Explain to me how Netanyahu has a claim to this land, to which Huckabee said he couldn't, he didn't even understand the question. And then regarding Greater Israel, Huckabee admitted it would be fine if they took it all. House of Rothschild, just take it all. 1948, Israel, Rothschild, just take it all. That's where we are in this story, William, and it's horrifying.
It feels like end of times.
It does.
It
And by
really
the way,
does.
you're right about, okay, so the Bolsheviks in Russia, Candace just explained to her audience that the Bolsheviks are here in the United States, and they were brought here after World War II from Germany under Operation Paperclip. You know, so I just want to drive that point home too. And where I previously thought that was just limited to sort of Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground and that sort of sect of politics, I don't know, man. It's starting to look like it's on the right and the left. And the Bolsheviks believe all this same insanity that we've been talking about. Do you think I have that right? Because God help
Yes.
us if there's a Bolshevik revolution in this country. Millions more Christians will die.
Yeah, we already kind of had one under Biden. So all those people, these kind of like fervent revolutionaries, I think were really involved in a lot of that stuff. And what's scary is I think they're going to come back after the discrediting of Trump and his whole administration. Because I think that his whole administration politically is done and will only get worse as long as the catastrophe in the Middle East continues. And the totality of the catastrophe hasn't sunk in yet because we are in an environment of media that's as bad as the Soviet Union. So you don't get information except on places like SGT Report. But once it sinks in, all these guys are done. That means the left is coming back. And they've learned stuff from the censorship and the control and the social control and the stone cold looting of the treasury through NGOs and fraud. So we're in for a ride. Like, I'm not positive. Like, I'm not an optimist.
No, it's
And,
ugly and it's scary. And I'd like you to paint a picture of what you think that looks like before we part ways, because I've been thinking a lot about this. And yes, we've got arms in this country, so we stand a chance. But here's the problem. We're so domesticated and we're so spread out in a country this large with our zip codes and our cities. Like, they know exactly who we are. They know where we are. So if they wanted to start to lock down cities, they could do it, and then they'll starve people out. So really conquering this nation without a shot isn't that difficult if our government has already been taken over at the top, William. That's what keeps me up at night. That's what prevents me from getting a good night's sleep.
it's a good point. And just like the intro, like you had that woman on, Shannon Joy, and like the controls. Well, if you go back to the Bolsheviks, food was a weapon. They weaponized food. If you talk about the Holodomor that happened in Ukraine or these other things, they ate first. And the people that they didn't want to eat didn't get food. So that centralized control really kept in the creation of the Cheka, the secret police, is something that they'll emulate here. That once the Bolsheviks came into power, the first thing they did is create a secret service, what's called the Cheka. It's an acronym. But so I would say something like that here. I mean, you saw they call it the weaponization of the FBI under Biden, but you could almost see it as the internal changing of the FBI and its character to a secret police. And the people who went through the J6 stuff and their harassment, I mean, they reveal, I mean, I can tell my personal stories. They're really not funny, but like, I mean, anyway, that's a whole nother story. It's going to happen again, is my point. They'll weaponize the FBI again, and they'll get somebody else in there that's not Patel or somebody else, and they'll start harassing everybody who disagrees with them, just like the Cheka did.
Let me ask you this, just an aside. Kash Patel was on this show once a few years ago before he became FBI director. He was saying all the right things at the time. Are you surprised at all? Are you shocked? I'm a little shocked, I have to admit. I didn't think it was going to go this way with the Trump administration. Are you shocked at the behavior of Kash Patel cucking to the deep state, and Bongino cucking to the deep state, and then Bongino returning to his podcast shocked? Shocked that people don't believe his BS? I mean, he's just as bad as these knee benders on X I've been talking about. Gunther Eagleman, Insurrection Barbie, Cat Turd. They're all on the same page. They all shit on Candace and Tucker endlessly, and they all seem to worship at the altar of this war. And I can't think of one good reason for this war to have started. Can you? So
No.
I guess it's a two-part question. Bongino, Cash Patel, the cucks. Were you shocked? And number two, why in the hell did they start this war? Why did Trump start this damn war?
I think I'm shocked at all of them because they repeated it ad nauseum. We're going after Epstein. We're going to prosecute them. And they said it over and over on their podcasts, on other people's podcasts. So they presented themselves as the white knights. And then they got in and did the opposite. The crimes in these files shock the conscience. There are babies being ripped out of wombs. There's people being experimented on. They're talking about changing the genotype of humanity. They're talking about creating different phenotypes through the like lessening of testosterone receptors. So like some of these like little skinny kids who didn't really exist as much when I was growing up, they may have been the offspring of Epstein's network. These are incredible crimes. So the fact that they're covering them up is like an abomination. It's so sick, and there really are monsters. Bondi, Patel, Bongino have covered up some of the biggest crimes in American history, and they can burn in hell. They shouldn't be there. They should quit. So I'm really just, it's an act of treachery too, from Trump as well too. And I think Trump knew a lot of this stuff. I think he's been involved in the cover. The firing of Joffrey Berman is a big tell, and the involvement of Barr and all these guys. Like, I think that Bondi was probably installed to cover up. Is why that picture is very important. That picture that I showed you or posted on my social media of her, Witkoff, Trump, and Black, because she has to. If she read the files, even in a cursory manner, she had to have known the accusations against Black, and there she is just sitting there like somebody from Damien the Omen or something. Like it's all for you, like weird, like really creepy. So these are dark crimes. These are I'm not trying to use hyperbole. There are women who are saying like I was used as an incubator. Like where are those kids? Are they thrown into Moloch fire? I don't know. Are they sold? And there's weird overlaps between Abramovich and Podesta and Yao of God. She was friends with this guy, Yao of God, who was a rapist. He's convicted for like 250 years and a baby trafficker.
Yeah.
He was involved in this incubation stuff. And that really happens. These are huge crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're not being prosecuted is disgusting. It's an abomination.
It's a horror show.
show.
And at this point, the joke is that MAGA, at this point, is Laura Loomer, Ben Shapiro, and Mark Levin. And fill in the blanks with people like Ashton Forbes. I want your thoughts on this before I let you go. So Joe Kent, in my opinion, did the right thing, spoke some truth, said he can no longer be a part of this. And then you have characters like Ashton Forbes retweeting Laura Loomer. This is what I'm talking about with the knee benders. This stuff is so transparent at this point for anybody who can think. Ashton Forbes writes, Joe Kent offered to testify in defense of Tyler Robinson, almost certain now that the entire Israel killed Charlie Kirk narrative was invented from whole cloth by Joe Kent, his wife Heather, Max Blumenthal, and Candace Owens. Their intention was to help defend the murderer who killed Charlie and the left who was responsible unreal. Now, that is a real tweet from somebody who was on my show once, and he's not a stupid person. This is complete and total horse, you know what. This is absolute BS. Candace Owens has all but proven that what happened to Charlie Kirk on September 10th was a military operation. Now, which military was involved? I guess we still need to work on that one. But the fact that these people would try to pin it on lone gunman Tyler Robinson with a straight face every single day on X and point fingers at Tucker and Candace and anybody else, Max Blumenthal, is just insane to me. It's insane to me that anyone would buy that, William.
Me too. It's informational warfare. The story doesn't make any sense. Tyler Robinson with a 30-06, right? Like Charlie is not shot with a gun. There's no spatter. It's almost a perfect environment to prove that there's no projectile involved because everything's white. His shirt's white. The tent is white. The background's white. Where's one drop of blood? There isn't one. There's just not there. Like you use your actual mental faculties and show yourself. You were the propaganda is you were shot, and they repeated it over and over and over and over and over and over again to try to drive that into people's mind. That's mind control stuff, MK Ultra. But it's not there. So then once you realize that Tyler Robinson, who they have like a 5,000 person like oath of silence or whatever thing, it's just like it doesn't hold. Why do you need that?
Yeah.
And why aren't they trying him right away? I mean, the story just doesn't add up. So
there's not one
thing. It doesn't add up to a fifth grader. So then, like, why are these people out there promoting the story? Why is Ashton Forbes, who's that video, I think, has been pretty much disproven as a fraud? That one where the plane kind of disappears, that kind of he made.
Yeah, the orbs, MH370, superconductor technology. I find it fascinating. And, the one thing I'd say about him is that actually I don't think the videos have been disproven or debunked. The attempt has been made, but, I was in his camp on that stuff. He should stick to that stuff. For him to wade into this briar patch after clearly bending the knee and taking the marching orders from the Zionists is just beyond the pale, and these people are destroying their own legacies and their own credibility in the space. By the way, guys, here it is. Hating the Antichrist is hate speech, according to the ADL, but here's what I wanted to share with William. Again, because of Baron Coleman and others like John Bray and Candace Owens, people doing the real research and investigation into who done it, who really murdered Charlie Kirk on September 10th. I think John Bray got it right just 1 week after Charlie's murder on September 10th. What did the DOD buy for $425,000 from Accurate Energetic Systems in Tennessee, which then blew up exactly 30 days after Charlie Kirk was murdered? It appears to have been a shaped charge that may have been used to murder Charlie Kirk, a shaped charge masquerading as a Rode microphone. The jury's still out, but guess what? We're not going to find that information from the FBI or Ashton Forbes, William.
We sure aren't. Let me ask you this question. Why did they put a microphone up here when he's holding a microphone with his hand?
Well, let me tell you something. As you probably know, because you follow Candace as closely as I do, and she used to be deeply embedded at TPUSA and friends of Charlie's, she said that never happens. You get mic'd backstage. Why was this mic placed on his lapel on his front just at the last minute? And by the way, the guy involved in bringing that microphone that day to the TPUSA event, he's sus as hell. I'll put his picture up right here. I mean, give me a break, man. This is all deep state stuff. And what's petrifying and horrifying about Candace's investigation is that this Fort Huachuca stuff, this military-industrial complex stuff, reaches all the way down to Main Street. I mean, the tentacles reach down so far that I don't think this can be defeated. It's too systemic. And to your point, the looting's on, so they're stealing the treasury. It's game over for this country, and I'm trying to see our cup is half full.
Yeah, it's we're in a lot of trouble. It shows how the military-industrial complex has seeped itself into our entire civilization, really, economy and culture. In every state, like that's how they actually get away with it. They make sure that the payments from the Department of Defense are spread out through the state so that they're all supporting the ongoing jobs and everything that's even corrupt. So it's, I mean, the creation of some of these overpriced items, $1 trillion for an F-35 or whatever that costs. Like it's an incredible sum of money, but it keeps a lot of people employed in tax dollars and stuff. But
yeah.
There's a really good book, I can't remember the name of it, but how the Department of Defense intentionally spreads out the industrial base to all the states so that they all will go along with the outlays, like the expenditures, which are incredible. And according to Trump, are $1.5 trillion a year. Like, what? Make that make sense.
You can't make any of it make sense anymore. And I guess, George Carlin got it right. It's a big club, and we ain't in it. Glad we're not in it, but I had no idea how big and vast the club was and how corrupt it was. I mean, the Epstein emails have really woken us up to the levels, the depths of the corruption. I mean, this is kind of like Sodom and Gomorrah level stuff.
Yeah,
William.
I think so.
Really
Zorro Ranch, Zorro Ranch wins a lottery. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. So much stuff. It gets really dark. The trafficking, the femicides and Juarez are involved. We know he's associated with all these kind of like deep state operators, Marcinko, according to some of the information that's in the files. And he's traveling around. So like really dark, just the darkest stuff. Fed to alligators, stables, like the stuff that's in the files.
Yeah. Pig
ranches.
ranches.
Is Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, they feed victims to pigs. Here's
Yeah.
Candace Owens on that shaped charge, and the old man with the beard who evidently delivered something to the event that day.
Butch Hibbs?
Butch Hibbs. Thank you. That's right. Yeah, Butch Hibbs. I think Butch Hibbs may have been in the same area of the country where that explosion occurred, where allegedly that little device may have been made and manufactured that may have played a role in the murder of Charlie Kirk, and then Butch Hibbs shows up at the event. Boy, it'd be nice if we got a real investigation, wouldn't it be, William?
Yeah, it would be great. I think it was in Tennessee where that whole building just blew up and all those people died, right?
That's
Like
right.
14 or 15.
Yep. Accurate energetic systems in a $425,000 fast-tracked DoD purchase of a shaped charge used to kill people, allegedly was made at that building, and a month later the building blew up, killing everybody inside. So to me, that's Deep State 101. Not only are they willing to kill Charlie Kirk in broad daylight, they're willing to kill a whole bunch of people to cover up the killing of Charlie Kirk, William.
Yeah, it was blown up to the foundation. Like there was nothing left. Like it was like overblown or almost overkill or something like that. Like incredible.
Yeah, it's nuts. We live in crazy times. I'll show your website here. I really appreciate your time, by the way. Can you tell us about William Ramsey Investigates, your podcast?
My podcast is in the top 0.5% in the world. You can see stuff. I've done a lot of Epstein material. I've had a lot of old things from Visigoth, who was one of the early podcasters. I've been entrusted with his kind of archives, so I put those up. You can see them on Spreaker. And I have 5 books, 5 documentaries on my Patreon. And I do post a lot on X. So a lot of the stuff from the Epstein files I put on my X thread. So if you people want to read through going back to January 30th, you can almost have like a little mini nonfiction book and a lot of really great comments. Like I put one about this girl from Brazil because they were trafficking people from Brazil. And I had like 6 million views of that because it went through the whole kind of Portuguese community. Or Portuguese diaspora, I should say. But there's a lot. There's just so much in these emails with obviously with 3,500,000 documents. But it's what they were up to is incredible. And the fact that they're not even investigating is just a huge tell on the enormity of the corruption and the enormity of the cover up, which rivals JFK, 9/11, moon landing, things like that.
Yeah. This Damien Eccles story is just really one for the ages. You guys should look into that. And Hollywood came to his rescue in droves.
Sure did.
Was he convicted of killing a child?
He actually is very curious in the criminal history of America because he is convicted twice. He was convicted in 1994, and then he signed a document admitting to first-degree murder in August of 2011.
Yeah, and Johnny Depp is one of those who ran to his defense amongst other Hollywood celebrities. Last question I want to ask you is about the smiley face killers. Where did that story end up? Did you ever solve the mystery?
Yeah, I think it's a MO that they're using globally. And there actually was one recently. There was one, Jimmy Gracie in Barcelona. There was another one in Thailand, a couple in the United States. So this phenomenon's still happening, but there were a lot in Austin and Chicago. So it's really still kind of morphing and growing. There's probably 500 victims. And that's my most recent book, too. I put out a second edition last year. So it's like 400 or 500 pages. It really goes into the history of this whole phenomenon. People need to be really safe men, too, at night. Just don't go home alone, just like women,
Yeah.
People are getting drugged. I think this phenomenon of people getting drugged in bars is really only increasing. So people need to stay safe.
Yeah, and there's a through line here that I wonder if you've picked up on, having listened to Candace, and what she was working on before they whacked Charlie Kirk in broad daylight was the Brigitte Macron expose, and she's uncovered some really interesting things about Brigitte and her past, including, I think it might be a period as long as 3 years of missing time in Brigitte's younger life, where she traveled to the United States. And I'm reading between the lines, and I hope Candace comes back to it. I'm sure she will at some point. Candace has sort of, how would I say, telegraphed at least the idea. My takeaway is that the potentiality is there, that perhaps a pre-transitioned Brigitte Macron may have been a serial killer. I'm just throwing it out there. May have been a serial killer roaming free in the United States for a few years. More on that to come.
It's interesting you say that because there is a pronounced involvement in some of these cases. One is a guy, Scarlett Blake, out of Oxford, who are transsexuals who are involved. Like one of the cases that actually fits the MO, the modus operandi for the smiley face killers to a T, is this guy, Scarlett Blake, in Oxford, and his victim's name was Jorge Carreño. And if it's like somebody just going out to commit a crime, to do evil deeds for the sake of doing it and getting away with it. So that's like the weirdest motivation, because most people attribute murder to crimes of passion, racial or gender animus or something like that. So it's hard for police to just think somebody's going out to do an evil deed to do it. But some of these guys do it. They do kill, and it accelerates. Like there's correlations with animal abuse that lead up to murder. Actually involves Damien Eccles was like that too, because he's been associated with like hurting animals before the crimes were committed in 1993. So yeah, it's pretty dark. One of the interesting things about the smiley face killers and Scarlett Blake is these guys travel around. They're moving other places and committing crimes and leaving. So there's premeditation. And I think and much like Epstein, actually, who moved from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, I think the smiley face killing perpetrators are deliberately going from jurisdiction to jurisdiction to commit their crimes. But you can buy that on my website or on Amazon.
Well, I will leave a link below. I think you're one of the more interesting guys out there in this space, William, and I appreciate you very much. One more time, because you're a compelling guy. Your podcasts are good. I've listened to several of them over the years. Tell people again how they find them.
You can just type in William Ramsey Investigates into Google. It should pop up. Like you can listen to them on Spotify, iTunes, Podcast Addict, whatever your kind of provider is. But a lot of them are old and they're kind of evergreen. Like they're on topics that you can listen to, much like our shows, or listen to 2 or 3 years later and still kind of get a lot of good salient facts. So, I've done film analysis. I talked about Rosemary's Baby and the Tesseract and Eyes Wide Shut. I've done series on those, so you can kind of see a film analysis on that and a lot of other film analysis. I did one on Blink Twice, which was like a movie that came out in 2025 that's like the Epstein Little St. James Island, where they bring people there and try to turn them into amnesiacs, which is what Epstein was kind of thinking about. I don't know if he actually was able to implement that as create amnesia, but he was definitely interested in mental states and forgetting stuff. And I think that was all part of his abuse network.
Yeah.
But yeah, William Ramsey Investigates is the podcast.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's glad to be with you again.
All right. There he goes, guys. William Ramsey. William Ramsey Investigates. The link is below. Really appreciate the truth tellers, folks. Last chance we have is to tell the truth and then bring people to justice. But how do you do that when your government has been captured and the FBI clearly represents the clients of Epstein more than we the people? I don't have any easy answers for you, but I no longer trust a plan that cannot be properly articulated. Guys, thanks so much for being here. I'll remind you every single day for free. Check us out to get the real news 24/7 at sgtreport.com. And until next time, God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.
I'm on Team America. I'm not on Team Israel. But the war is going very badly. From my point of view, Netanyahu is dead. They continue to lie and cover it up. And every proof of life video that has been put out there to say that has actually been proof of death.